Hello everyone, good morning, and welcome to another episode of Cooking in Quarantine with your host, Benjamin Roses. Today, we're gonna make banana bread out of these very ripe bananas. Now, you probably know I'm a big fan of Alton Brown. This is a baking book he wrote called I'm Just Here for More Food, which is a sequel of his cooking book. The banana bread that I'm making follows the muffin method, which just means that it's gonna be fluffy and sort of coarse and lots of air in it. I think a lot of people end up with banana cake instead of banana bread because of overmixing and so on. So pay attention and we will make some fluffy, delicious banana bread. I've got the oven preheated to 350. I have a bread pan greased up and ready to go. And everything else is in front of me, so let's start with these bananas. Sometimes, the bananas are getting dark and you throw them in the freezer. That's great. These ones just ripened on their own on my counter. Still smell really good and they're good on the inside. Just brown on the outside, which is right where you want them. I'm gonna use 3.5 bananas. The recipe calls for 3 or 4 bananas, so that's perfect. Okay. Since I like to weigh everything, a cup of sugar is 210 grams. Sugar doesn't really pack like flour, so it's not an issue to use a measuring cup. But with flour, every time you pull a scoop with a measuring cup, you might get a different amount because of how dense or fluffy it can be at any given time. So I've got this potato masher, and I'm just gonna mash the cup of sugar and the 3.5 bananas into a nice, thick conglomeration. It makes me want banana cream pie. That was a good episode. Okay, so with muffin method, one thing you do is mix wet things and dry things separately and then combine them. And the dry things should be either sifted or spun in a food processor for a few seconds. So bananas and sugar are considered wet because, And the other wet ingredients I'm using are 2 eggs, a stick of melted butter, not too hot, let it cool, and a teaspoon of almond extract, totally optional, don't run to the store just for almond extract, but I happen to have some in my cupboard for reasons. Okay, a teaspoon of almond extract. Whisk all that together nicely. It's the final mixture that you don't want to overmix. The wet ingredients on their own can be nicely mixed, smooth, with the egg and butter all together. And then I'm just going to combine this with the other wet stuff, bananas and sugar. Okay, great. It's slightly lumpy, but I don't mind that. And now, the dry stuff. Got my handy scale ready to go. I'm gonna use a cup of flour, 1 2/3, it's really 2 cups of flour. But because what we're working against here with this muffin method is overdevelopment of the gluten. We don't want this to become bread, like elastic or chewy. So instead of using pure flour, I'm going to cut it with a little bit of gluten-free flour just to reduce the overall amount of gluten. I happen to have some gluten-free flour, which is like tapioca and rice flour. Oat flour would work too. Or just 2 cups of flour is fine. Why not use all gluten-free flour, you may ask? Well, we do actually want gluten. We want those air bubbles to be trapped and expand in an elastic gluten matrix. We just don't want to overdo it. So 1 2/3 cup of flour is 220 grams, according to Mr. Alton Brown. And to top it off with 35 grams of alternative flour. Also, pastry flour would work as well. This is just sort of like makeshift pastry flour, because what pastry flour is it's like normal bread flour but with less gluten. For this very reason, and a teaspoon each of salt and baking soda. Now, like I said, instead of whisking this, I'm going to just pulse it in the food processor for a few seconds. A whisk or a sifter would do as well. I just kind of want to fluff it. Okay, there we go. And now we fold the wet into the dry with the spatula. So the name of the game, I'll say it again, not over mixing. We're not creating a smooth paste. We're creating an uneven, doughy, chunky mixture. Because again, we don't want banana cake, we want banana bread. It is possible to undermix too, but it's less of a risk. How do you know if it's just right? I don't know. Trial and error, practice. It has that muffin batter feel to it. Optionally, a cup or so of nuts. I've got these walnuts that I chopped. Toss those in and fold them around. I'm just trying to go until I don't see any more dry clusters of flour. Great. Into the bread pan, into the oven. I'm gonna bake it for probably less than an hour. I'll set a timer for 50 minutes and check it. Do the old toothpick test. And if the toothpick comes out wet or sticky, I'll do another 10 minutes or so. Check it again. The acid in the banana should react with the baking soda and create gas balls, which you get trapped in our gluten-light flour elastic matrix that we've created, and give it a good amount of fluff. check back in 50 minutes. All right, it's been a little bit. The banana bread has been slow to come up to temperature. I threw a probe in there and I was hoping to bring it up to closer to 210. It's just like hanging at 205. I'm gonna take it out of the oven and let it cool, and we'll see if it was too early. I don't think it'll be too wet. It'll probably have a chance to continue to cook and steam itself to completion while it rests. Thermometer acts as kind of a toothpick test as well, and it is clean, which is a great sign. So look at that. Nice looking banana bread, just split open on top. I'm gonna let this cool for a while before I cut it open. All right, it's been cooling for like an hour. Came right out of the pan. Let's have a look-see. It smells so good. I really wish we all had smell-o-visions. Okay, it feels light, moist, fluffy. I can see the walnuts. It might be a little dense, but that seems great. I like to have it with a little bit of butter, especially when it's hot and the butter just melts on that steaming slice of banana bread. That's fantastic. Yeah. That is fantastic. Bye.